Welcome everyone to the Layer5 community meeting. Today is 15th of October. Today also happens to be the last day of KubeCon. I hope everyone had a chance to check out KubeCon and it was fun. We have a couple of newcomers on this call. So like we do every time, we have a tradition where we harass newcomers as they join in the call for the first time. So Daniel, I think, is this your first time on this particular call? Would you like to introduce yourself?
Okay, I'm sorry, it's not the first time on this call. I've been a regular member of Layer5. We contributed to the new community docs. Joined around this time last year. Just I've not been too regular due to schoolwork and all. So good evening, everyone.
It is Daniel. Nice to see you.
Yeah, Lee. Good evening.
As I hug my coffee this morning, sure.
How's work going?
It's a KubeCon weeks are generally pretty packed. I attended virtually this go around, which makes it a lot easier to be less busy. Usually it's like having breakfast with people, lunch with people, dinners with people. We gave about 4 talks this time. I think we've got one later today. It's a pretty easy talk, but anyway, KubeCons are like generally really packed. I think, by the way, just as we talk about KubeCon, the stats before the conference, I think were about 3,000 attending in person was the estimation. And then about, I don't know if it was 15,000 registered virtually. And so you can see the divide there. Most of the folks, it actually would have been a nice KubeCon to go to in person, at least for me, having spent a lot of time around KubeCons, it would have been nice to have it less busy and just catch up with other vendors, other people who've been there for a while. But that's, it's like for the most part, that's a lot of the folks that, it's like, I would venture a guess that like the overwhelming majority of people that are there are vendors, are people who are companies that have something to sell or work in and around the tech, which is great. Like there's a lot of very interesting things going on. So anyway, as we talk about KubeCon for a moment, it's a good question for all of you who might have attended virtually. Think about this question. If you have a takeaway from KubeCon or something that you thought was interesting, something that you didn't know before, or just something that you'd like to share, now is a good chance. Or we'll bring it up again a little bit later in the call too. Anybody see anything they thought was kind of neat? Yeah, there's a lot of new projects this time around. All right, if anyone's interested, we can we can post a post-event report. Actually, I think that will be made public. There's a couple of reports going on right now about who all is involved, and I'll go find it and share it with you guys. But did anybody see any a new project they weren't aware of? Something that caught their eye? So we had just approved Cilium for incubation as a new project. Cilium's focused on eBPF as a technology, very related to the tech that we focus on here, and will become a focus of ours as soon as we accomplish a few things together. There are probably some that I would say are misinformed, that like eBPF and service mesh don't go together. They do. There was one of the vendors in the space had presented it like a little slightly inaccurately. But anyway, they're highly complementary. eBPF is a way of speeding up the same interactions that a service mesh needs to do already. It just depends on how you're implementing the network. But that same proxy-based approach can be done with eBPF. It's been there for a while, actually, for a few years. So don't let people fool you if you see that.
Oh, hi, Lee. This is Deepak.
Deepak?
Yeah, Deepak. So
Mr. Wick.
I wanted to say Mr. Vic. Yeah. So the trip call was quite great for me, like meeting new people and all. I thought like people were quite people don't really like connect with each other, but yeah, this experience has been like great. Like I connected with so many people and all, attended many sessions, and the fact that yesterday I joined the Layer 5 community. So then again, people were like, welcome Deepak, welcome Deepak. It was like quite an experience. Like, and then I got a message from you on LinkedIn. Like, I really appreciate that.
Oh yeah, it's well, you've already got a nickname too, or I guess
Yeah, you can call me by that.
nice. Yeah, no, that's great. Question for you: as you connected with people virtually, was that a lot of that through Slack, or were there other parts of the
No. Most I guess it was like what I used to do. I had my sessions, so I used to attend sessions and all. So in the meanwhile, like I used to have some time. Like I don't have like there's a session like on 10 for me. This is night over here in India. So like let's say I have a session on 10 p.m. and then I have a session on 1 a.m. So I have some time like suppose I have time for 1 hour. So I usually go around the booths and all, and usually I also have the sessions with different maintainers. So yeah, so I talk to them, and mostly I connected with many people on the booths, like the companies and all. They were quite welcoming, even though everything about Kubernetes went above my head. But in general, I used to ask about the company, like because that is quite digestible for me, like how the company was made and all, and the story behind the company. So people really like that, and yeah, that is how I started connecting with people.
Makes sense. Anybody else have reflections on KubeCon? Nice. Okay. Hey, just we will like. There's a lot of. We've got about like a third of the people that normally show up to the call, or about a half. We might be able to move through the call a little bit quickly. I'm going to see if I can facilitate that before Navendu takes back the mic. Couple of things. It was a big week for us, all of you, on announcing some of the work that had been done. So Meshery and the Service Mesh performance projects had recently gone into the CNCF. They're sandbox level projects. They were both kind of trumpeted and announced this week. There's one of the, an analyst on devops.com picked up, took interest and wrote up a few thoughts. And Bami, who's on the call, she's going to post that on layer5.io under the news section. That's nice. Yeah, those were the two. So yep, those two big announcements, and then we had project hours that we got to meet Deepak at. So it's fantastic to see Deepak on, Mr. Wick. By the way, is that Mr. Wick reference? Is that like to like John Wick? Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Okay, Piyush can relate, I think. But I'll let you guys chat about that. So Navendu, then can tell us about the upcoming session a little bit later today.
Yep. So we have the service mesh performance project office hours today at KubeCon. So service mesh performance was a project that was built initially by the Layer5 community and then eventually adopted by the CNCF. So we have a couple of maintainers joining in from Intel, Red Hat, and HashiCorp with us today. So we will be having a project officer session today in I think a couple of hours. And join in if you'd like to learn more about the project and learn about what the new initiatives that we are taking in the project and around that ecosystem. Yep. So I will share the link to the event in the chat. You can RSVP for the event and join in. All right. Related to that, we have bi-weekly meetings for service mesh performance project. So in the next meeting, which will be on the 28th of this month, we will have Jakub, who is Nighthawk maintainer from Google, and he'll be handling a session on adaptive load controllers in Nighthawk. We will be talking about Nighthawk's custom load control capabilities, including adaptive load controllers, as well as its distributed load generation capabilities. Yep. So join in if you are interested in the project. We'll be working mainly on SMP and Get Nighthawk, which is another project that the Layer5 community is building. So yep, check it out. Lee, would you like to add anything else?
No, that's great. Or other than if you're into C++, like that project is focused on or is done in C++. So it's a good call out.
All right. So we have the v0.6 release coming up. We had a build and release call yesterday, and we looked into some of the pressing issues that we need to fix before we make a release. So one of the issues was migrating to Helm in Meshery CTL and updating Meshkit's capability to handle an updated Helm chart. So, yep. Lee, were you going to talk something about this?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask on status. Like, have we reviewed that PR and made a release of Meshkit yet?
Yeah, actually, one last comment is still pending, and it's just about typo. As soon as I get a reply from Darren on that particular thing, it would be merged, as well as we will have a new release of Meshkit.
From there, is there any code change left for Meshery server?
Yeah. I mean, with respect to Meshery server deploying the operator, yes, there is. But other than that, I don't think so.
Okay, cool. And Rudraksh, that's an item that you're looking into?
Yeah.
And okay, good. All right, and you're confident, or I'm just trying to gauge your the intonation in your
Yes, almost. I had a busy day today due to exams and stuff. That's
yeah, totally understandable. Yeah. Just signal if your brain is fried or if
okay.
But good. So the venue, is there any other, is that the last standing item gating the V060 release?
Actually, we also have the measure-ctl perf command. So measure-ctl perf is the performance benchmarking with measure-ctl is an area that is being worked upon. I think Piyush, me and Piyush will review it today, and hopefully we can get it done today itself. And yeah, I guess that was the main concern. If I'm not missing anything, let me just confirm it. Yeah, and a couple of other small items like documenting where users can get seed content for the remote provider, and yeah, and the release block. Those are the only items that are left. So I guess we can make a release this week itself. All right.
Quick follow-up, just because some recent work had been done in this release on the Nginx, the Mesh adapter for Nginx, and Jared had some great notes that I hadn't been able to go fully through. So I figured, Jared, I'll ask you: have we put to bed each of the challenges that you've bumped into?
I haven't tried it since the other day when I believe it was Darren was talking about fixing some of the issues. I don't know if he's had a chance to look at those yet. So right now you can't deploy Nginx via Meshery, but if you deploy Nginx manually, then you deploy it manually in the Nginx system namespace. I believe it has to be that specific namespace. Then Meshery will pick it up and you can detect it there. But that's the only way I found to make it work. So it kind of works. I don't know that I would necessarily say production ready because there are a few workarounds that users have to go through.
Do we know, is it the Nginx -system namespace and the necessity to specify that from Meshery UI? Like, is that the challenge, or is there something else with the way that Meshery is provisioning Nginx service mesh that needs to change?
Let's see. Trying to remember. I think Nginx system was hard coded into the. I'm not sure which component. I'm still trying to get up to speed on all these things, but I believe Nginx system was hard coded in there, so that's why it had to be deployed in that specific namespace.
Sure.
Let's see.
I guess that might be for mesh sync, like Nginx system was hard coded in the mesh sync mapping service mesh to namespace mapping so that we can see Nginx pods on the dashboard. Other than that, I guess we don't have it hard coded anywhere in the adapter.
Actually, so mesh sync does discover it in every namespace. It's just that the resolver has the hard coding. Just clarifying that mesh sync discovers it in every namespace, but when we show it in the dashboard, we only show for Nginx -system. That's where the hard coding is actually.
Got you. So just to clarify, Jared, last time that you tried to provision an Nginx service mesh through Meshery, From the perspective of Kubernetes, like as you go and verify that it was deployed correctly, did it deploy correctly in Kubernetes, but just didn't reflect in Meshree's UI appropriately?
No. So if whenever you go through the Meshry UI and say create namespace, deploy in this namespace and create the namespace, it will deploy it will create the new namespace that you specify, but it will deploy Nginx inside the Meshry namespace, regardless of which namespace you specified. It always puts it in the Meshry namespace. And since it needs its own dedicated namespace, that doesn't work very well. And also, I had to manually create a cluster role binding for the pre-installed service account. Otherwise, it would fail. The label namespace job pods would fail because it didn't have sufficient permissions to access any other namespace aside from Meshry, I believe, that was specifically built for the service account is specific to the Meshry namespace, but it didn't have sufficient permission to list resources in any other namespace. So I had to create that cluster role binding before running or trying to deploy Nginx. Otherwise, those pods would crash, just enter a loop. Actually, no, they wouldn't enter a loop. They would just finish their jobs. And eventually it would time out. It took a long time to time out though. And I didn't realize that it timed out because I waited quite a while. So I started just deleting things. And then like 10 or 15 minutes later, it's like, oh, in the Meshry UI, I got the notification that it finally timed out. So I ended up just usually nuking everything and starting from scratch.
And there's a couple of, so does anyone have a different status? Does anyone know if that's the same status? Like there's 3 issues I think that we're identifying. Are we still in that same position currently, these 3 issues? Sounds like we probably are. So Rudraksh or is Ashish on? Do you guys, anybody have a guess as to why it is that the Nginx control plane is being provisioned in the Meshry namespace? It's probably due to that lack, maybe the lack of cluster role binding? Or no, like
yeah, I think so. If the pods have a specific requirement for this, then we might need to add this to either the charts or the manifest, the adapter starts or the manifest, so that it can store it properly. I guess if that's causing the bug, because the adapter seems to work fine.
Right. Between Ashish and Rudraksh, probably Ashish did each of the 3 things that Jared just mentioned, or I think the 2 that he mentioned, and then like the 3rd one about the hard-coded Nginx system namespace. Do each of these 3 things make sense to you?
Yeah, I think so.
So the cluster role binding, that seems straightforward to make sure that that's included and included up front. Like NSM needs to be able to run that job and run it, with, or that job needs to run as part of the provisioning. And if it doesn't have the correct permissions to be able to do that, then yep.
It needs the cluster admin role, like RBAC. So that's what the binding is for.
Okay, so this is not a binding for Meshery service, well, or is it a binding for Meshery service account to the cluster admin role?
Yes, the pre-install, I forget the full string, but it's a pre-install service account in the Meshery namespace that gets generated.
Makes sense. So Jared has a meeting in like 45 seconds. Ashish, any last questions for Jared before he has to go?
No further questions. I'll look through the points given right now here.
Okay, yeah, good. So the witness is excused from the stand. Is that the?
All right. Thank you to everyone for helping with these issues. I feel bad, like always coming in like, oh, I can't get this working.
Oh, great. Great. Jared's going to say something. Oh man, here it comes. Here it comes.
No, just wanted to thank everyone for their patience and time and helping work through this. So
there's some HPE folks who are excited when we talk about Nginx Service Mesh because of its use of Spiffy and Spire. So yeah, no, it's I didn't think that I had lost faith that we would be able to. It wasn't until the Helm chart came around that my faith was restored that the adapter could like live and breathe. So it's good. It's good.
Yeah. Okay, I got to drop, but take care, everyone. We'll see you next week.
Bye, Jared. All right. Good. Ashish. Ashish, guess what? Assuming that you're feeling comfortable here with these first two, we might, Karsh, if you're aware of this item, quick question, is the proposed solution here to either mandate that when Nginx Service Mesh is provisioned, that Meshery is only provisioning it in, like that we're hard coding that namespace from the beginning, which is inflexible, but is a solution? Or are we considering using other mesh sync data other than that namespace?
Actually, so one of the things is obviously we can't do that you were suggesting. Second thing is, because now every installation is Helm-based and we have very easy method to do overrides, so we can start annotating stuff that we provision. That would be, but again, there would be an issue, that is, what if Nginx Service Mesh already existed? So as a fallback, we can get back to, okay, if it already existed, it must exist in this namespace, and then we detect it. But yeah, these two are the easiest things we can do in order to sort of get rid of the hard coding.
Potentially container image name as a backup.
Yep, yeah, that definitely that too.
Now, I think one of the issues there might be is like, well, if they're literally using upstream Spire or something like that, it would be like, well, so which one does that belong to? And you kind of get into, it's like, yeah. Okay. At the moment, like it might be worth it just to force Nginx system, just like we do Istio system, and kind of come back to a more flexible system in the future. We're already kind of down that path with one of the meshes, at least. And I think that's true for Linkerd as well. I don't know.
I think it's we do enforce for certain uses. That's not, just to clarify, that's not a limitation from our side. Linkerd doesn't work properly. At least it didn't used to work properly in other namespaces because they have stuff hardcoded in their manifest. So that was our reason to do that.
And I think the same kind of goes for Istio. And Istio's system is that, like, in concept, the project says that you could change that to whatever you want to, but it's sort of like an in concept thing. Like conceptually you could, and then you're probably going to run into bugs. And so, yeah, I don't know. No one has really pushed back on, you know. So yeah, okay. Sorry. So hey, next topic for Bami and Anita, and where's the list of, and for a lot of the rest of you, for all of the rest of us, I had a new topic, a different one, something that it'd be nice if everybody thought about for a minute. So one of the things that we've one of the big items that we've been working on in the community is, well, service mesh patterns. Gosh, where are they? So this sort of functional section right here, service mesh patterns. So there's a catalog, there's a list of patterns that are being defined. And each pattern, like a pattern is basically a function of a service mesh. Like if you want to configure a service mesh to do something, great, it can be described in a pattern. And these patterns are being, there's a list of them, a catalog of them being curated for, like, basically like a best practice, like a good starting point, a great template, okay? That can be represented as YAML. It can also be represented visually to help people grasp what that pattern is about. This visualization is an example of, am I sharing my screen? No, okay, somebody else is. Okay, I'm sorry. I was sitting here thinking that I was sharing my screen, but okay, yeah. So the screen that's being shared is great. Like there's okay. So to jump to the chase, we will have a catalog of patterns. Aditya Chatterjee, or Meshmate Aditya, gave a crack at what a catalog might look like. The thing is like all of us, so I suspect, you know, I don't know what you all think, but like, here's a decent start. You all probably have an opinion because unless you don't live on the planet Earth, like you have shopped online before, you've looked through online catalogs. And that's basically what this is like, there's a picture of the thing, there's a description of the thing, there's a unique identifier, like that's pattern number 49. And you know, here's a description of what it does. Here's an image, a visualization of what it does. And eventually there'll be like an order button. It's, you know, it won't literally be an order button, but it'll be like an import to my Meshry button. So if anyone has, I'll say it like this. So Ayushman is on, Mr. Mishra, who I suspect is going to jump all over this in the best of ways. And that is like, unless anyone has something better to suggest, this is kind of the start to that catalog. Please take a look. This I've seen better, and that's not a reflection on Aditya. That's just like he got us started. What else can we do? Is there any interaction on there, Vendu? When you click on a pattern, does it bring up a modal and then show you like further details or anything?
No, it just takes you to the pattern management docs, I guess, right now. I'm not sure if, yeah, that's the function.
Anybody have any comment on this topic?
Is this description, will this description be enough to let users know what the pattern does, like, or do we need a bit more descriptive?
It's a nice, concise, short name, you know, like duration-based canary, good. Maybe that's that's enough to like intrigue and tell people that that's the type of thing that they're looking for. But to your point, there needs to be a paragraph or a bulleted set of like additional descriptors. So each of these are going to have an image, an ID, a name, a short name, a long description, associated YAML, like literally the pattern itself. Over time, maybe they'll have versions, maybe they'll have, like contributor names, or maybe they'll have an official mark, like this is an official one that's supported by the project. Maybe there are others that individuals in the community are contributing. Those are all the potential possible futures. Maybe there's more than one image. Maybe there's a screenshot of like it actually running. If you really get in, like we probably won't take it that much further, like, because what you also could describe is like, well, when should I use this pattern? And like, what's an anti-pattern? Like, when should I not use this pattern? And like, what's configurable about this pattern? So you have this duration-based canary, so does that run for 5 minutes, or could I change that? And it's like, okay, those are other things we might want to describe. We don't have to consider for all of that necessarily now. It's okay if this evolves. We wouldn't want to publish all of that, like what are the caveats of the pattern, when all the scenarios in which you would want to consider to use it, all the anti-pattern, blah, blah, blah. Like, otherwise we're going to publish a book. And there is a book being written on service mesh patterns. And so this will, so people can go, maybe we'll go sponsor that book and like give it away for free or something. But the point isn't about selling the book. The point is not to like plagiarize the book and go publish the whole thing, but anyway, we need a pattern catalog. So people have ideas. The Monday's websites call, great call to talk more in depth. If people have ideas and you want to just flesh them out in Figma, there's a couple of Figma design projects that you can that have mockups of Meshry.io. I'm going to have that visualization. You can go in and play with things, propose things. So. Cool, yeah, search box, a filter, maybe a category filter. Like, yeah, I mean, eventually, if you keep going, like, be like, oh, okay, well, which ones do you have deployed? Because maybe you've already deployed 2 of them and there's, 58 other ones. Like, or wait, how many times what's the most popular one? Like, well, what do you mean popular? Popular by how many times has it been deployed, or popular by upvotes, or like, oh, okay, should we have, so you could keep going, right? You could.
So in one of the previous calls, we had discussed about this. I think Aditya Chatterjee was also present. So we had discussed about keeping a filter there based on pattern types, so that if someone wants to come and search for, say, a deployment pattern, we filter it on base of that. So somewhere near the top, we have a filter based on type of the pattern, say deployment or other types of patterns.
Yep, I totally forgot, by the way. Let me send a link in chat and steal the ball for just a moment, and we'll get off of this subject. I actually forgot that. So we were talking about Meshry.io. It's a great place for the patterns. There's a list of the rest of like 60, like the 60 patterns that are being defined now. Those are out on Layer5.io under the book called Service Mesh Patterns. So to Zane's point, like these predefined patterns are categorized, and this implementation done in Gatsby has a filter. It doesn't really take it any further. You can't. Oops, looks like the filter has a bug. You can't, click, or you can't, there's nothing else published here, but Yeah. Okay.
All right. I'll just skip this topic for now, but Utkarsh or Rudraksh, if you'd like to talk about app mesh.
Yeah, so I have it installed right now. I'm just having trouble with mesh sync, so it's not showing up on the dashboard. I can probably show the adapter. I'll quickly share my screen and give some updates. So we have the app mesh adapter with us now. It's like all the adapters. It's very specific, like app mesh images are stored in ECRs and private repositories. So to pull the app mesh controller and other container images, you need to use a cluster which is authenticated with and is able to pull images from those private repositories. Right now, I'd say the best thing to do in that case is use an EKS cluster. And even AWS states that app mesh is best to be used with EKS. So we can see here all the usual functionality. You can play with namespaces. You can click here and deploy or uninstall. I have it installed in my cluster right now, so I won't do it again. I can uninstall it, install it. Other than that, we have all of the functionality that you'd expect from an adapter. And okay, nice. Nice. Just found some bugs. And yeah, that's it. We have the app mesh logo here as well. We probably need to add it to the navigator so that we can see in this menu. I wish mesh sync was up and I could have shown you guys this dashboard. So that's it. Any other things that we could possibly talk about?
Yeah, this is really neat. This is great. We're just watching a new adapter being formed kind of as we speak. So can you say a couple of words about authenticating to using AWS IAM, or like how this differs from the way that Mesh3 might normally
So
speak?
I'd say we'd expect it's the same thing as Mesh3 out of cluster doesn't work with EKS because of all that IAM stuff and how the Cube client is configured for EKS. For now, both of the combination, like even Mesh3 and the app mesh adapter, we support them in cluster, in your EKS cluster. You can install them and that would work fine. Out of cluster deployments, like if you want to deploy the adapter out of a cluster, I mean, yeah, that's on roadmap. Like once we support EKS deployments, I mean, EKS authentication in probably Meshkit or however we come up with that for Mesh3, the same way we'll use for out of cluster app mesh adapter deployments as well. So in other cases, it's just as similar. You would, just install it in cluster using Mesh3 CTL system, start platform Kubernetes, and add to your mesh config the adapter name, and you should be good.
Awesome. Hussein, this might be an item for you for us to consider. So soon, probably like next week, we're probably ready to update the Meshri bash script, the Piyush, like the golden temp, like we're probably ready to kind of move at this app mesh adapter into beta, which would mean, you know, all the usual things. Updates in Meshri CTL and the Docker files, and a manifest, or I'm sorry, a chart, a subchart for this, and so on. Wow, that was a really long chip name, Kubernetes and the full ARN. Cool. Nice.
Yes, I guess we grabbed the context name from the kubeconfig, so however it looks like.
Sure, makes sense. Or no, I wasn't.
Yeah.
That sounded like a complaint, but it was more of just an observation of specificity.
Okay.
No, anybody else have feedback here? Questions? I got to imagine that App Mesh would run on AWS Outpost as well, although their docs don't say it at the moment. The App Mesh team, the reason we're talking about App Mesh Adapter, it's been on the backlog for a long time, but the App Mesh team had reached out asking to meet up and learn more. And so figure maybe we should go ahead and get the App Mesh Adapter ready so that they can, so that they're included. Okay. Rudraksh, as you've become somewhat familiar with the App Mesh itself, have you noticed any particular namespace naming requirements, like the ones that we were just talking about with Nginx?
No, I guess there's nothing as such. It isn't, you can install it in any namespace. For mesh sync, we have preferred app mesh system because simply stating that's what the tutorial suggests. So we are assuming most of the people would come and install it in app mesh system, and that would sync with the dashboard thing that Utkarsh pointed some moments ago. So, yep.
Okay. Good deal.
Yep.
Anything else for Rudraksh?
All right. Thank you, Rudraksh. Utkarsh, could you talk about the long-lived tokens in Meshri Cloud and like how we'll be implementing it and how we can use it?
Yeah, so actually, as everyone probably knows, and if they don't, let me tell you, we have GitHub Actions for multiple things that Meshri still can do, like SMI and SMP. Those things need. So when we perform those GitHub Actions, first of all we need the persistence of those results, if I'm not wrong. So for that, you would need a long-living token and not a token which dies in 24 hours, or basically if it dies. So recently we added that particular functionality in Meshri Cloud. So what Meshri Cloud is now capable of is you can ask Meshri Cloud for generating tokens with indefinite lifetime. Not all tokens will be affected, and neither this particular interface is openly available, so that you don't generate indefinite lifetime tokens. But definitely this is something that Meshri Cloud will have access to. That is, it is going to expose an interface through which you can get indefinite tokens. Once you do, what you can do is, let me try to grab the PR where this thing was added. If you have access to indefinite tokens, you can use those indefinite tokens in in GitHub Actions, which is certainly what we're planning to do. And obviously now that the tokens will never expire, and this particular implementation is completely transparent to Meshi server. So Meshi server is not anyhow affected. All it knows is that that there is a token and it has to pass it to a provider, not to Meshi Cloud, to any provider you're connected to. Right now only Meshi Cloud is supporting it. So yeah, so basically the implementation is completely transparent. You can send the request. Your request will be forwarded to Meshi Cloud, and Meshi Cloud can do its thing. Here, let me quickly share the screen. Should I grab the screen?
Yep, sure.
Now give me a minute. Okay, let me share the screen, and Navedu, if you can share the screen, because apparently Mac has issues with everything that I do. So here's the link. Yep. So as this particular PR states that now there is a new endpoint in Meshi Cloud, definitely it has some restrictions built around it so that no one can abuse this endpoint for generating random tokens. After that, once you get your hands on indefinite lifetime token for a certain user, then you can grab the token and generate a JSON, as I have written in point number 1. That is, all you have to do to use this token in Meshi CTL is generate this particular thing, or .json Meshi provider is Meshi token is this. If this looks familiar, you're probably right. This is exactly the same format what you get when you click on, in the UI, you go and click on get token, download token. This is the exact same format. So all you have to do is provide your provider, and basically the token that you got, you can place it in token. Now that you have this particular JSON file, this can be placed in GitHub Action. Obviously using secrets or something. You can place this in GitHub Action, and now you will have an action which does not have issues, with the token expiry and all. So I actually all of this, like we did all of this thing to get the GitHub Action working, so that it's obviously it's of use, but it's far more usable if you don't have to replace the token every other day. So yeah.
How can, like, other than internal to Meshi's GitHub Actions, like how can others use this token? Like we can't add them to the admins table, I guess. So
yeah, definitely, as I think Lee is pointing out in the chat, that we probably will have a UI for creating this token, and because obviously this token is of indefinite lifetime, so it's like a high privilege token. It doesn't have all of the roles assigned to it, obviously, but so this is a restricted action, so the interface won't be exactly available to everyone. It would be available in the admin panel of Meshi Cloud probably, and that is something that we'd be probably doing next. So from there, there's an endpoint. We will create an interface for that so that you can generate tokens on the fly for a certain user, and then you can use that particular thing in whatever place you want to use.
yes, sounds good. Yeah. Other comments here. Saying, would you like to mention something?
Yeah, I had seen this requirement actually of the UI. I was coming to ask. So this was the right person. Right, ping Utkarsh on Slack call.
Yeah, please. Utkar should be able to point you in the right direction in terms of what type of a UI might make sense.
All right. Before we close this meeting out, I just wanted to point out to this issue where we are trying to improve measure-ECTL docs. So there is this tool called ASCII NEMA. So it is basically, so here is an example. So this is to we can use this to document our measure-ECTL. So this could be an enhancement. So users can better understand what is happening in measure-ECTL, and we can provide a guided user flow. So users, instead of just simply the command, so this will help the users understand measure-ECTL better and understand all its capabilities. So there is an open issue in Measure that talks about this. This might need some design on what goes into this new user experience. So feel free to take a look and give suggestions. Piyush will be handling this issue, and please reach out to Piyush if you have any suggestions on this as well. And also there are a lot of open pull requests with the bug bash as well as the new release. So I just wanted to make a call out to everyone here to anyone can go ahead and review this PR. So any review to this pull requests are helpful. So please feel free to jump in and help us out with these reviews. So some of these PRs are very quick bug fixes. So it would need just a couple of minutes to review as well. So yeah. So anyone else have anything else to discuss right now before we wind up? All right. Thank you everyone for joining. I hope to see you all at the SMP project office hours later today. If not, I'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Al.
Bye, folks.
Bye.
Bye.